The desert world was silent. Broken towers stood like bones of a dead giant, half buried under red dust. The air smelled of rust and smoke. No birds, no animals, no sound of life. Only the wind whispered through the ruins of a city that had once reached the stars. A human traveler moved carefully among the ruins. His name was Daniel. He was not a soldier, not a hero. He was only a wanderer searching for scrap, water, and maybe a way off this forgotten planet. His ship had broken down weeks ago, and now every day was a fight to survive. As he stepped over a collapsed wall, he heard something faint. A sound. At first he thought it was the wind. But then it came again, weak, broken, almost like a cry. Daniel froze. He listened. The sound was coming from inside the shadow of an old building. Cautiously, he walked closer. His boots crunched on the dry sand. He pulled a small light from his belt and aimed it inside. What he saw made him stop breathing for a moment. There, under broken metal beams, lay a small creature. Its body was thin, shaking with weakness. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dark. It was not human. Its skin was pale silver, with faint blue patterns glowing like veins of light. Its ears were pointed, its face almost like a child's, but alien, fragile. Daniel whispered, "An alien cub." The creature looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. It gave another weak cry, soft and desperate. Daniel felt something in his chest tighten. He had seen many things in the galaxy, traitors, pirates, machines, but never something like this. This was a young one, abandoned, dying. He stepped closer. The cub tried to move, but it had no strength. Daniel saw the bones under its skin. Whoever had left it here had left it to die. For a moment he hesitated. He was only a man trying to survive. Food was short. Water was precious. To help this creature meant danger. It meant carrying extra weight, sharing his supplies. It meant risking his own life. But then the cub gave another weak cry, and its small hand reached toward him, trembling. Daniel sighed. Damn it. He knelt and carefully lifted the cub into his arms. It was light, far too light, like a shadow of life. The creature clung weakly to his shirt. Its glowing eyes did not look like the eyes of a beast. They looked like the eyes of a child. That night, Daniel sat in the broken shell of a house. A small fire burned in front of him, and the cub lay wrapped in his old jacket. He opened his ration pack and poured a little water into a metal cup. Slowly, he gave it to the cub. At first it was afraid, but then it drank, desperate, hungry, thirsty. Daniel gave it a small piece of food. The cub ate, then looked up at him with wide eyes. It made a sound, soft and strange, almost like words in a language he did not know. Daniel smiled faintly. "You're welcome, little one." For hours he watched over it. Outside, the night was filled with strange sounds, whispers of scavengers, maybe wild machines searching through ruins. He held his weapon close, but his eyes often returned to the cub. Something inside him told him this was not just another creature, it was something more. The cub slept, its small chest rising and falling, glowing patterns pulsing softly on its skin. Daniel leaned back against the wall, staring at the fire. He whispered to himself, "Why did I do this? Why didn't I just walk away?" He knew the answer, even if he didn't say it. Because he was human. And humans could not always ignore a cry for help. As the night deepened, Daniel's mind drifted to questions he could not answer. Who had abandoned the cub? Where had it come from? Why did its strange glowing eyes feel so important? He looked at the small creature sleeping in his jacket. He did not know that his choice tonight would echo across the stars. He did not know that this dying cub would one day return, not as a child, not as a refugee, but as a ruler of empires. All he knew was that he had heard a cry in the dark, and he had answered. The second night was colder than the first. The ruins seemed alive with whispers. Metal groaned in the wind, and shadows stretched like claws across the broken walls. Daniel sat close to his small fire, keeping his weapon nearby. The cub slept in his jacket, its tiny body trembling now and then, as if chased by nightmares. Daniel had survived many lonely nights on strange planets, but this night felt different. He wasn't alone anymore. He had someone to protect, and that made the darkness heavier. Suddenly a noise echoed through the ruins, a sharp sound, metal scraping against stone. Daniel's heart tightened. He turned off his fire instantly, plunging himself into shadows. He listened. The cub stirred, sensing danger. Its glowing eyes opened, and for the first time Daniel noticed they weren't just glowing. They shifted in color, faintly golden, then pale blue. Intelligent. Watchful. Another sound. Closer now. Daniel crouched low, holding his blaster ready. He saw them then, shapes moving in the dark, scavenger drones, rusted machines left behind by whoever once ruled this city. Their light scanned the ruins, searching for scraps of life. Daniel whispered, "Stay quiet, little one." The cub's eyes met his, and for a strange moment, Daniel felt it understood him. The creature didn't cry or move. It pressed close, against him, silent, trusting. The drones came closer. One of them stopped only a few steps away. Its single red eye glowed, scanning. Daniel held his breath, finger tight on the trigger. But if he fired, more would come. If he stayed still, maybe. They would pass. Seconds felt like hours. Then, as if guided by luck or fate, the drones turned away. Their light swept another part of the ruins. Slowly, they disappeared into the night. Daniel exhaled, shaking slightly. He looked down at the cub. It was still pressed against him. Eyes wide but calm, he whispered, "Good, you're braver than I thought." From that night forward, something changed. The cub no longer looked at him with only fear. It followed his movements with curiosity. When he ate, it tried to copy him. When he spoke softly, it made strange sounds in response. Not words he could understand, but sounds that carried meaning. Days passed. Daniel shared what little food he had. He taught the cub how to sip water slowly, how to chew, how to stay hidden when danger came near. The cub learned quickly, too quickly for a normal animal. One evening, Daniel returned from searching the ruins for supplies. He carried a small container of stale grain and half-rusted tools. When he entered the broken house, he froze. The cub was sitting upright, tracing glowing patterns on the wall with its fingers. The shapes shimmered faintly, as if alive. Daniel stepped closer. The patterns were not random. They looked like symbols, maybe a language. The cub looked at him, eyes glowing softly, and made a sound, clearer than before. It pointed at the wall, then at itself. Daniel blinked. "Is that your name?" The cub repeated the sound. It was short, musical, but alien. Daniel couldn't pronounce it. He shook his head with a small smile. "I'll call you Starling. You shine like stars." The cub, Starling, made the sound again, softer this time, almost like acceptance. There, bond grew in the shadows of that dead city. Daniel no longer felt like a lonely scavenger. He felt like a guardian, maybe even a father. Starling followed him everywhere, holding his jacket when they walked through broken streets. But danger never stayed far. One night when Daniel and Starling were resting, voices echoed across the ruins. Not machine voices this time, but human. Raiders. Armed men searching for salvage, or worse. Daniel's heart raced. He pulled Starling close, hiding behind the remains of a wall. The raiders carried torches, laughing cruelly, dragging metal crates behind them. One of them shouted, "Search everywhere!" There must be something valuable here. Daniel tightened his grip on his blaster. If they found Starling, they would take her, sell her, maybe kill her. He couldn't let that happen. The raiders drew nearer. Daniel looked at Starling. Her glowing eyes locked with his. She touched his hand gently as if to say, "Do not be afraid." Daniel whispered, "Stay quiet. Stay with me." When the raiders came too close, Daniel fired a single shot into the sky. The sound exploded through the ruins. The men shouted in panic, thinking an enemy force was near. They ran, scattering into the shadows. Silence returned. Daniel's hands shook, but Starling pressed her head against his arm. That night, as the fire burned low, Daniel realized something he had not admitted before. This cub was not just an abandoned creature. She was something greater, intelligent, powerful. And somehow, deep in his heart, he knew she would not stay a cub forever. 20 years passed. The ruins of the old city had long crumbled into dust. Winds erased footprints, and the bones of machines rusted until they were nothing more than broken shells. Yet one memory never left Daniel: the night he had saved the alien cub. Daniel was older now. His hair had turned gray at the edges, his hands lined from years of hard work. He had finally escaped the dead world and found his way back into the galaxy. But he did not rise to greatness. He did not become a hero. He lived simply, moving from one colony to another, fixing ships, trading parts, and surviving the way only a wanderer could. Still, in the quiet hours, he remembered the cub. Starling. He wondered if she had lived, if she had found her people, or if she had simply vanished into the endless night. But the galaxy had changed. Rumors spread across colonies and starports. People spoke of a new power rising from the ashes of war. An empress, young, brilliant, and merciless to her enemies. She commanded fleets larger than entire nations, her soldiers loyal beyond reason, worlds bent to her will, and even old empires trembled at her name. No one knew where she came from. No one knew her past. Some whispered she was chosen by the stars. Others claimed she was a weapon created by ancient gods. But all agreed on one thing: she was unstoppable. Daniel heard these stories while working in a repair dock on a mining world. He laughed them off at first. Legends, he thought. The galaxy always created myths in times of war, but the more he listened, the more uneasy he became. The descriptions were strange. Her glowing eyes, her strange markings, her voice that carried power. Something deep inside Daniel stirred. Could it be her? Could it be the cub he once fed in the shadows of a dead world? One evening, as Daniel left the dock, the sky burned with fire. Ships descended through the clouds, not raiders, not traders, but warships. Enormous, sleek, and terrifying. The people of the colony ran to the streets, pointing at the sky in panic. Soldiers in black armor poured into the city, disciplined, silent, unstoppable. Daniel's heart pounded. He had seen soldiers before, but not like these. Their movements were precise, as if they shared a single will. Their banners showed a star encircled by flames, the mark of the Empress. The colony governor surrendered within an hour. No battle, no resistance. The Empress had claimed another world without spilling blood. The people whispered in fear as they were gathered in the main square. Daniel stood among them, his mind racing. Would he see her? Would this Empress appear? The air changed. A strange silence fell as a great ship lowered into the square. Its ramp opened, and from the blinding light, she appeared. The Empress. She wore armor of silver and black, symbols glowing faintly along her arms. Her presence was like fire wrapped in steel, beautiful yet terrifying. Soldiers bowed as she walked past, her cloak flowing like night itself. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Her eyes, they glowed gold, then blue, then silver, just as he remembered. It was her. Starling. He felt his knees weaken. 20 years had turned the fragile cub into a ruler of worlds. She was taller now, her face sharp with command. But her eyes, they were the same. The Empress raised her hand and the soldiers fell silent. She spoke in a voice that echoed through the square. This world is mine now. You will not suffer. You will not fear. But you will obey. The people lowered their heads. Daniel did not move. He could not. His heart thundered as he stared at her, and then it happened. Her eyes swept across the crowd, cold, distant, searching. But when they fell on him, she stopped. For a long moment, the Empress did not speak. Her gaze locked onto Daniel, her expression unreadable. Something in her golden blue eyes softened, almost human. Daniel swallowed hard. Did she remember him? Could she? The soldiers around her shifted, uneasy. No one had ever seen their Empress pause before. But she lifted her hand slightly, signaling them to wait. The silence was heavy, every eye on her. Then, without warning, she turned and walked back toward her ship. The ramp closed. The engines roared. The great ship lifted into the sky, leaving the colony trembling in its shadow. But Daniel stood frozen, heart racing. Because in that final moment before she turned away, her lips had moved. Just one word, too soft for anyone else to hear. Father. The colony never forgot that day. The Empress had come like a storm and left like a shadow. No blood spilled, no city burned, only a silence that pressed on every heart. People whispered about her glowing eyes and the way she moved like she was carved from starlight. But Daniel remembered only one thing, the single word she had spoken to him before she left. Father. For days, he could not sleep. He replayed that moment over and over. The crowd, the silence, her gaze meeting his. Could it really be her? Could the cub he once fed in the ruins have risen to rule thousands of worlds? He tried to push the thought away, but destiny does not release so easily. One evening, as Daniel worked on a broken engine in the repair dock, the ground trembled. Outside, lights filled the sky again. Ships, sleek, black, endless, descended like falling stars. But this time they did not gather the people into the square. They came for one man, Daniel. The doors of the dock burst open. Soldiers in black, armor entered, their faces hidden behind helmets. Their leader spoke with a voice of steel. Daniel of Earth, the Empress summons you. The workers around him froze in fear, staring at him as though he were cursed. Daniel's hands shook as he set down his tools. He wanted to run, but deep inside, he knew there was no escape. He nodded slowly. The soldiers surrounded him, guiding him through the streets. People watched in silence, some pitied him, some envied him. All feared what it meant to be taken by the Empress. They brought him aboard a massive ship. The walls hummed with strange energy. Lights glowed like veins through the corridors. The soldiers did not speak. They led him deeper, through doors of silver and black, until at last they stopped before a chamber. The doors slid open, and there she was. The Empress stood at the center of the room, her cloak of stars flowing behind her. Her armor gleamed in the pale light, symbols glowing faintly across her skin. She did not look like the fragile cub Daniel had once held. She looked like a queen born from fire and steel. Yet when her eyes met his, the glow softened. Leave us, she commanded. The soldiers obeyed without hesitation, the doors closing behind them. Silence filled the chamber. Daniel swallowed hard. His voice was rough, uncertain. It is you, isn't it? The Empress stepped closer. For a moment, the ruler of 1,000 worlds was not a queen, not a warrior, not an empress. She was a child again, looking at the man who had once fed her in the dark. You gave me life, she said softly, when the stars had turned their faces from me, when even my own people abandoned me. You stayed. You fed me. You gave me hope. Daniel's breath shook. Starling. Her eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time in 2 decades, she smiled. You remembered. A flood of emotions hit him. Relief. Fear. Pride. Confusion. He stepped closer, though his knees trembled. I thought you were gone. I thought you didn't survive. I survived because of you, she replied. Your kindness was my first strength. Every world I claimed, every throne I broke, I carried that memory with me. Daniel shook his head. But why? Why me? I'm no one. Just a man who tried to do the right thing. You are not no one, she said firmly. To me, You are everything. The empire I built, it began with you. Silence lingered between them. He looked into her golden blue eyes and saw both the child he had saved and the ruler she had become. But then a darker thought rose inside him. You've conquered thousands of worlds, Daniel said quietly. People fear you. Are you the same cub I saved? The smile faded. The Empress's gaze hardened, though sorrow flickered behind it. I am both. The child and the ruler. The cub and the Empress. I cannot be one without the other. Daniel's heart ached. He wanted to believe she was still the innocent creature he had carried in his arms. But the galaxy whispered of her power, her cruelty, her wars. The Empress stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. Do not fear me, Father. The galaxy may see me as a weapon, a conqueror, a queen. But to you, I will always be Starling. Daniel felt tears burn in his eyes. For 20 years he had wondered if his small act had meant anything. Now he knew. It had changed everything. But destiny is never simple. The doors of the chamber burst open again. A soldier rushed in, kneeling. My Empress, a rebellion has begun in the outer systems. The enemy fleet gathers. They plan to strike against your rule. The Empress's expression hardened instantly. She straightened, her aura shifting from daughter to ruler. Prepare the fleets. None shall stand against me. Then she turned to Daniel, her eyes softening once more. Stay with me. You gave me life. Now walk beside me as I defend it. Daniel stood in silence, torn between fear and awe. The cub he had once saved was now an empress leading armies across the stars. And he, an ordinary man, had become part of her destiny. He did not know what awaited him, only that his choice long ago had bound him to her forever. The War Council ended with orders sent to every fleet. Commanders bowed, soldiers saluted, and the vast machinery of the Empire began to move. Yet when the chamber was silent again, the Empress did not sit on her throne. She stood by the wide window staring at the endless ocean of stars. Daniel remained a few steps behind her. He felt out of place in this hall of power, a simple man surrounded by steel and fire. But the Empress had dismissed her generals and kept only him. Finally she spoke. Her voice was softer now. You want to know how a cub became an empress? Daniel nodded. The Empress turned, her golden blue eyes glowing with memory. When you left me in the ruins, I was still weak. But I remembered your warmth, your fire, your food. It gave me strength to keep breathing. Others came later, slavers, scavengers, hunters. They tried to take me, to sell me, to use me, but I survived. I always remembered the human who fed me when I was nothing. His courage lived in me. Her cloak stirred as she walked closer. I was captured by raiders once. They laughed at me, called me a weak orphan. They thought I was harmless. But the energy in my blood woke that night. I burned their chains, I took their ship, and I promised myself that I would never again be powerless. Daniel swallowed hard. He could see flashes of the cub he remembered inside her words. But now they were, wrapped in steel, she continued. I learned quickly. I studied war. I learned to lead. Some followed me because they feared me. Others followed because they believed. My enemies thought me only a child, but I made their fleets kneel. And every time I faced death, I thought of you. I asked myself, what would the human do? Would he walk away or would he fight? Daniel's voice was quiet. I would fight. The Empress smiled faintly. And so did I. She raised her hand, and the walls of the chamber came alive with light. Holograms filled the room, showing battles of her past. Fleets colliding, worlds falling, her banner rising. Daniel watched in silence. The scale of it shook him. The cub he once cradled in his arms had commanded storms of fire across the galaxy. But the images changed, not only battles. He saw her standing before starving villages, giving food to the poor. He saw her sparing prisoners when her generals wanted them dead. He saw her kneel beside children, her glowing eyes soft, whispering words they could not Here. Daniel looked at her in confusion. You rule with both fire and mercy. Yes, she said firmly. Because of you. You gave me kindness when you had nothing to gain. That act became my law. I crush my enemies, but I protect the weak. That is the balance of my throne. Her words struck deep into Daniel's heart. He had always wondered if saving the cub had meant anything. Now he saw it had built an empire, one forged not only in conquest, but also in mercy. But the moment of peace did not last. The doors of the chamber opened suddenly, and a messenger hurried in, bowing low. My Empress, spies confirm the rebellion grows stronger. They call themselves the Free World's Alliance. Their leaders swear they will destroy you. They spread lies, that you are a tyrant, that you enslave, that you are not fit to rule. The lame Empress's eyes flared with fire. Let them come, I have faced worse. The messenger hesitated. They know about the human. They know he is with you now. They will use him against you. Daniel stiffened. His chest grew heavy. He was no warrior, no soldier. If the rebellion came for him, what could he do? The Empress stepped forward, her cloak brushing the floor like flowing shadow. They will not touch him. He is under my protection. He is the root of my empire, though they do not know it. If they seek him, they will find my armies instead. Her voice shook the chamber like thunder. She turned back to Daniel, and for a moment her power melted into something softer. Do you see, Father? Every throne I sit upon, every fleet that bows, every enemy that trembles, it all comes from you. You gave me life, and so I give you my empire's loyalty. You are not only my past, you are my anchor. Daniel's throat tightened. He had never sought greatness, he had never asked to be remembered, yet here he was, standing at the center of a story that stretched across 1,000 worlds. But deep inside, fear still burned. He looked at her and whispered, Starling, if this rebellion grows, if they strike at you, I cannot fight fleets. I cannot fight empires. The Empress placed her hand gently on his shoulder. Her eyes glowed with both power and sorrow. You already fought once. You fought when you chose to feed me, when you risked your life to save mine. That was the first battle, and you won. Do not doubt yourself now. Her words sank into him like fire into stone. Yet in his heart, Daniel knew the storm was only beginning. The rebellion would not stop. They would come for her. They would come for him. And the bond they shared would be tested across the stars. The galaxy stirred like a restless beast. Across distant systems, banners of rebellion rose. Fleets gathered under the mark of the Free World's Alliance, their voices united in one promise: the Empress must fall. The Empire had faced enemies before, but this time was different. The rebels were not only soldiers, they were traitors, spies, former allies. They knew her tactics, her secrets, her weaknesses, and they whispered that the Empress had taken in a human, a fragile man, and that he was her weakness now. Daniel felt the storm long before it arrived. Every corridor he walked carried stairs, soldiers who wondered why he was there, officers who whispered when he passed. He was no warrior, no prince, yet the Empress kept him close. To some, he was a symbol of her mysterious past. To others, he was a danger. One night, as Daniel moved through the halls of the flagship, he felt it, a chill of being watched. He turned a corner and found 3 soldiers standing in his path. Their armor gleamed black, their helmets hiding their faces. Human, one said coldly. The Empress may trust you, but we do not. You are a weakness she cannot afford. Daniel's hand tightened around the small tool he carried. I didn't ask for this, he said firmly. I never wanted to be part of your war. The soldier stepped closer. That does not matter. The rebellion knows your name. They will use you to break her. If you disappear now, perhaps the galaxy will be safer. Before the man could strike, the air trembled. The doors of the hall burst open and light filled the space. The Empress herself appeared, her cloak flowing like a storm behind her. Her voice cut through the air like thunder. "Stand down." The soldiers froze, then dropped to their knees. But their hesitation had already betrayed them. The Empress's eyes blazed with fury. "Traitors!" With a wave of her hand, energy crackled. The traitors were flung aside, their weapons ripped from their hands. Guards rushed in, dragging them away to face judgment. Daniel stood in silence, his breath shaking. The Empress stepped to him, her expression softening. "They will not harm you. Do you see now? The rebellion does not only wait outside, it hides in shadows within my own fleets." Daniel nodded slowly. Fear gnawed at him, but so did guilt. "They're right about one thing. I don't belong here. I'm no commander, no soldier. If I stay, I'll only make you weaker." The Empress placed her hand on his shoulder, her voice steady. "You are not my weakness. You are my strength. They fear you because they cannot understand why I value you. Let them fear. I will not let them take you." For the first time, Daniel saw the weight in her eyes. She carried not only power, but loneliness. Billions followed her orders, yet only he knew the truth of her beginning. To the galaxy she was a goddess. To him, she was still the cub he once saved. But the rebellion was moving faster than either of them expected. Reports flooded in, worlds falling, governors betraying their oaths, fleets breaking apart. The Free Worlds Alliance struck with precision, as if guided by knowledge only an insider could provide. Then came the worst news. A general of the Empress's own High Council had turned. A man she had trusted for years. He had joined the rebels and stolen entire fleets, promising to bring Daniel to them as a prize. The Empress's fury shook the chamber. "He dares betray me? He dares touch what is mine?" Daniel stepped forward, his voice quiet. "If they want me, then maybe I should go. Maybe if I give myself up, they'll leave you alone." Her eyes blazed with fire and her voice cracked with rage. "Never. Do not speak such words again." The chamber fell silent. For a moment, Daniel saw not the Empress, but Starling, the cub, desperate, afraid of losing the one person who had once chosen her. Her voice softened, trembling. "Do you not understand? They can take worlds from me, they can take fleets, planets, even my throne. But if they take you, then they take the only piece of me that is still true." Daniel's heart ached. He wanted to tell her he was just a man, that she didn't need him. But he saw the truth in her eyes. She did need him, not as a soldier, not as a ruler, but as the anchor that reminded her of who she once was. Outside, the alarms of war echoed through the ship. Fleets were gathering, preparing for a battle that could decide the fate of 1,000 worlds. The Empress turned to the stars, her voice steady again. "The rebellion believes they can break me with betrayal. They believe they can use you against me. They are wrong. We will face them together." Daniel stood beside her, fear and determination mixing in his chest. He had never wanted this destiny. But he knew now there was no turning back. The storm had found him and he would stand in it, not as a warrior but as the man who had once saved a cub in the dark. And now, that cub, grown into an empress, would fight to protect him and her, empire alike. The galaxy burned. Across the stars, fleets of the Free Worlds Alliance gathered like storm clouds. Thousands of ships, countless soldiers, all with one goal: destroy the Empress and end her empire. On the bridge of her flagship, the Empress stood tall. Her armor glowed faintly, her eyes burning gold and blue as she watched the enemy fleets forming in the distance. Around her, commanders shouted reports, maps flickered with red lights, and alarms echoed through the corridors. Daniel stood beside her, silent. He had never seen such power gathered in one place. Entire suns seemed dim compared to the fire of the fleets outside. His hands trembled, but he did not move away. For 20 years he had wondered if saving the cub had mattered. Now he stood, at the heart of a war that would decide the future of 1,000 worlds. The Empress raised her hand. Silence fell. Every officer turned to her, waiting. Her voice rang like steel. The rebels believe they can break us. They believe betrayal has weakened us. They believe they can steal my anchor from me. They are wrong. Today we show them the strength of loyalty. Today we show them the fire of an empire. The fleet roared in answer. The battle began. Space filled with fire as ships clashed. Beams of light cut through the void. Explosions blossomed, like dying stars, and the blackness trembled with the thunder of war. The Empress's forces moved with precision, but the rebels were fierce, striking with cunning. They knew her tactics, her weaknesses. On the bridge, Daniel watched the chaos unfold. He felt useless, a small man among giants. Yet his eyes never left the Empress. She moved like she was born for war, calm, commanding, unstoppable. Every order she gave turned the tide. Every gesture carried the weight of destiny. But then, the betrayal struck deeper. A signal pierced the fleet's defenses. One of her own ships, commanded by the general who had betrayed her, turned its weapons inward. A blast tore through her flagship's shields. The bridge shook violently, alarms screaming. Soldiers fell. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Smoke filled the air. The Empress staggered but did not fall. Her eyes blazed with fury. Find that traitor and burn him from the stars. Yet even as her forces fought, the enemy general's voice echoed through the comms, cold and cruel. You are not a goddess, Empress. You are only a child who hides behind a human. We will take him, and your empire will crumble. Daniel's chest tightened. He saw the soldiers glance at him, fear in their eyes. The enemy was right about one thing: if he was captured, she would be broken. The rebels struck again. Another blast rocked the ship. This time the Empress fell to one knee, blood tracing her lip. Daniel rushed to her side, his heart pounding. Starling, he cried, using the name only he dared. Stay with me. Her hand tightened on his arm, her voice faint but fierce. I will not fall. Not while you are here. For a moment Daniel saw not the Empress of 1,000 worlds, but the small cub he had once carried in his jacket. Weak, trembling, but still alive because of him. And now she needed him again. The bridge shook once more. The enemy fleet was closing in, targeting them relentlessly. Desperation filled the air. Commanders shouted, weapons fired, but it was not enough. Daniel made a choice. He rushed to the controls of the secondary systems. His hands were clumsy. He was no soldier, no officer, but he knew machines. He rerouted power, overloaded circuits, and redirected failing shields. Sparks burned his skin, smoke stung his eyes, but he kept working. Daniel! The Empress shouted, rising to her feet. He looked back at her, breathless, his face lit by the glow of flames. You once told me I fought when I fed you. This is the same fight. I will not stop now. And then it happened. His desperate rewiring created a chain reaction. The flagship's core surged with power, unleashing a shockwave of energy that spread through the fleet. The shields reignited stronger than before, and the enemy's assault faltered. The Empress seized the moment. Her voice thundered across the comms. Now, strike them down. Her forces surged forward. The traitor's ship was torn apart in a blaze of fire. One by one, the rebel fleets crumbled under her counterattack. The void lit with victory as the last enemy ship fell silent. The battle was over. The Empress stood tall, her armor scarred, her body wounded, but her spirit unbroken. She turned to Daniel, who collapsed against the controls, exhausted but alive. She knelt beside him, her glowing eyes soft with something no soldier had ever seen. Tears. You saved me again, as you did when I was a cub. Twice now you gave me life. Daniel tried to smile. You didn't need me. You're the Empress of the stars. Her voice broke. No. I am the Empress because of you. She rose and lifted him gently, carrying him as he once carried her. The soldiers watched in silence as their mighty ruler, conqueror of worlds, held a simple human in her arms with reverence. When she spoke again, her voice was steady, filled with command. Let the galaxy hear me. This man is not my weakness. He is my strength. He is the father of my empire. Cheers shook the hall, echoing through the fleet, through the stars, across 1,000 worlds. And as Daniel closed his eyes, resting against the Empress who had once been his small, fragile cub, he realized that his forgotten act of kindness had not only saved one life, it had saved a galaxy.